Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. This video reached you because you're standing at the edge of change. Haven't you noticed the same lessons repeating in your life? Tonight, the cycle cracks, and when it does, a forbidden secret reveals itself. Stay, because what you learn will change how you see everything. Have you ever wondered why certain challenges seem to follow you no matter how much you try to move forward? You change jobs, but somehow the same kind of boss reappears. You end one relationship, only to find the same heartbreak pattern waiting in the next. At first, it feels like bad luck or coincidence. But the truth is, life doesn't work on coincidence, it works on patterns. These repeating cycles are what I call loops, and they are far more deliberate than we realize. A loop is like a hidden classroom. It keeps re-enrolling you in the same lesson until you finally understand what the universe is trying to show you. Think of it as a cosmic syllabus. The people you meet, the situations you encounter, even the setbacks you experience are all part of that curriculum. The loop doesn't exist to punish you, it exists to shape you. Just as a video game won't let you move to the next level until you defeat the boss, life won't let you step into your next stage until you've conquered the patterns that keep you small. One of the most fascinating things about loops is how they disguise themselves. At first glance, each new cycle looks different, new faces, new circumstances, but deep down the emotional imprint is the same. For example, someone who grew up feeling abandoned might find themselves repeatedly choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable. The details change, but the theme is constant: abandonment. Why? Because that wound is the unfinished lesson. Until it's healed, life will echo it back to you through different characters. Here where it gets interesting, loops aren't random traps, they're mirrors. They reflect back the very energies, beliefs, and fears we carry within us. If you hold a deep belief that you're unworthy, the loop will keep delivering experiences that test that belief. If you secretly fear failure, the loop will keep presenting circumstances where you either face it or run from it. In this way, life isn't against you, it's collaborating with your growth, even if it feels brutal. But why would the universe design it this way? The answer lies in transformation. Real growth doesn't happen in comfort zones, it happens through pressure, repetition, and awareness. Just as muscles need resistance to grow stronger, the soul needs patterns to evolve. A loop, then, is not a punishment, but a personalized training ground. Each cycle gives you another chance to respond differently, to make a new choice, to rise above the old script. When you start to view loops in this way, something shifts. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me right now?" That change in perspective is powerful. It takes you from being a victim of life's cycles to becoming a conscious participant in your own transformation. Breaking the loop begins with awareness. The moment you recognize that a pattern isn't random but purposeful, you step into a place of power. Suddenly, every challenge becomes less about frustration and more about preparation. And that is the hidden nature of life loops. They exist not to trap you, but to prepare you for the version of yourself that only emerges once you've outgrown them. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: if you keep facing the same situation over and over, it isn't life being unfair, it's life being precise. Every repeating cycle is a signal that something within you is still incomplete, a lesson left unfinished. Until that lesson is acknowledged and integrated, the pattern will persist, often disguised in new forms, but carrying the same core message. Imagine school exams. If you don't pass a subject, you repeat the course, not because the teacher dislikes you, but because the foundation must be mastered before you can advance. Life works the same way. If you find yourself constantly in financial struggle, it might not be about bad luck. It could be about learning how to manage resources, value yourself, or release the scarcity mindset. If betrayal keeps showing up, it may not be about bad people, but about learning boundaries, self-respect, and discernment. The repeating cycle is the universe's way of highlighting what your soul still needs to learn. Think of it this way: patterns are like highlighters in a book. They draw your attention to the passages you skipped over or refused to read. You may flip to the next chapter, but until you absorb the highlighted line, you're going to circle back. The loop forces you to look at what you'd rather avoid. It insists, "This matters, pay attention here." What makes cycles so challenging is how subtle they can be. Sometimes the repetition is obvious, dating the same kind of person, losing jobs for the same reasons. Other times, it's internal, feeling the same emptiness no matter how much you achieve, or battling the same insecurity even in new environments. The outer world shifts, but the inner script stays the same, dragging you back into the loop. But here, the empowering side. The moment you identify the pattern, you reclaim power over it. Awareness transforms frustration into revelation. For example, if every relationship ends with you feeling unappreciated, the lesson may not be people are ungrateful. The lesson may be learning to honor yourself so deeply that you no longer tolerate those who don't. When the lesson lands, the pattern no longer needs to repeat. Repeating cycles are not punishment, they are invitations. Each recurrence is the universe saying, "You're ready to face this again, but this time you can choose differently." Instead of spiraling in frustration, see the cycle as a checkpoint. Ask yourself, what did I miss last time? What choice did I avoid making? What truth did I refuse to face? When you begin to approach life this way, repetition becomes less of a burden and more of a map. Every cycle points directly to the door you must unlock to move forward, and once you unlock it, that chapter closes for good. The loop dissolves, the lesson integrates, and you are free to step into the next stage of your evolution. Almost everyone has experienced déjà vu, the strange sensation that you've lived a moment before. Most people dismiss it as a brain glitch, but what if it's something more? In spiritual terms, déjà vu is often a subtle signal from your higher self or the universe, pointing out that you've stepped back into a familiar loop. It's not random, it's a breadcrumb trail. Think of déjà vu as an alarm bell, a quiet whisper saying, "Pay attention, you've been here before." It's not always about a physical place. Often it's about an energy, a conversation, or an emotion that mirrors a past experience. For instance, you might meet someone new and instantly feel like you've known them forever. That familiarity isn't always soul connection. It could be the universe warning you that this person embodies the same traits as someone from your past who triggered a painful lesson you didn't finish. Here's the key difference between ordinary déjà vu and spiritual déjà vu. Ordinary déjà vu feels fleeting, almost meaningless. Spiritual déjà vu comes with weight. It stirs your intuition. You feel an internal pull, a sense that this moment matters. It's as if reality is giving you a choice point. Repeat the cycle blindly or pause and respond differently this time. For example, imagine you've just started a new job. You're in a meeting, and your boss's tone suddenly gives you that odd déjà vu feeling. It reminds you of your last boss, the one who constantly undermined your confidence. That moment is not coincidence. It's a warning that you may be stepping into the same pattern of silence and self-suppression. The déjà vu gives you a chance to notice it early and make a different choice, like speaking up for yourself or setting boundaries. Spiritual déjà vu is also connected to timelines. Some teachings suggest that our lives branch like paths, and déjà vu happens when you encounter a crossroad you've seen before, maybe in a dream or a potential future. That sense of familiarity is the universe saying, "This moment is pivotal. The choice you make now shapes everything that follows." What makes déjà vu so powerful is its ability to slow you down. In the rush of daily life, we often repeat patterns unconsciously. Déjà vu forces a pause. It reminds you to look deeper, to ask, why does this feel familiar? What is life trying to show me here? If you ignore it, you may slip back into the same story. If you listen, it can be the exact tool that breaks the cycle. The next time you feel déjà vu, don't shrug it off. Stop, breathe, tune in. That strange sense of familiarity may be the universe's way of saying, you're at the edge of a loop, choose wisely, because this decision has the power to change everything. If loops are the stage where life's lessons play out, then unconscious programming is the script that keeps you acting out the same role. The most powerful patterns in your life don't come from conscious choices, they come from the hidden codes written deep in your subconscious mind. Until those codes are seen and rewritten, you'll keep living out the same storyline, no matter how hard you try to change the scenery. Most of this programming begins early in childhood. The way your parents treated you, the words spoken in your home, even the emotions you weren't allowed to express, these all become internalized. A child who was constantly told they're too much may grow up to silence themselves in every relationship. A child who felt abandoned might unconsciously chase unavailable people because the mind clings to what is familiar, even if it's painful. The loop, then, isn't random. It's your subconscious mind pulling you back to what it believes is normal. But it doesn't stop at family. Society programs us too, from school systems that reward obedience over creativity to workplaces that condition us to seek validation through productivity. We're trained to fit into patterns. Think about how often people stay in unfulfilling jobs because that's just how life is. That belief is not truth, it's programming. And as long as it runs unquestioned, it keeps you locked inside loops that feel impossible to escape. Here where it gets tricky, unconscious programming operates like background software. You don't see it, but it controls everything. Have you ever promised yourself, this time will be different, only to find yourself back in the same heartbreak or failure? That's not because you're weak. It's because the hidden program running in your mind is stronger than your conscious intention. Until you bring it into awareness, it will always win. The good news is, awareness changes the game. The moment you identify a belief like, I don't deserve love or money is hard to earn, you begin to break its hold. That awareness disrupts the autopilot. Instead of automatically falling into old choices, you pause. You ask yourself, is this me or is this the program speaking? That pause is where freedom begins. To illustrate, imagine someone who grew up in poverty. Their unconscious program says, there's never enough. Even if they start earning more, they might sabotage opportunities or overspend because deep down they still operate from scarcity. Once they realize that belief is just programming, not truth, they can rewrite it. With practice, they build a new script. I am worthy of abundance and I know how to manage it. Suddenly, the loop dissolves. Unconscious programming is not your enemy, it's simply unexamined. The loops in your life bring it to the surface again and again until you decide to face it. And once you do, you're no longer the character trapped in the script. You become the author, rewriting the story on your own terms. One of the clearest ways life loops reveal themselves is through the people and places you keep attracting. If you've ever wondered why you seem to end up in the same kind of draining friendships, controlling relationships, or stressful workplaces, it's not random. It's the loop playing out through environments and connections that mirror your inner programming. Toxic relationships often begin with a subtle familiarity. You meet someone and feel an instant connection, almost like destiny. But what feels like chemistry is often recognition. Your subconscious sees traits that fit into the old script. For example, if you grew up seeking approval from a distant parent, you might feel magnetically drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. On the surface, it feels exciting. Underneath, it's the loop trying to resolve unfinished business. The problem is, without awareness, you end up repeating the same pain again and again. Environments work the same way. A person who never felt safe at home might repeatedly end up in jobs where they're undervalued or overlooked, because that discomfort feels familiar. Toxic environments reinforce the loop by keeping you at the same frequency of fear, scarcity, or self-doubt. And until you step out of them, the cycle strengthens. Breaking these patterns begins with recognition. Ask yourself, what do all these people have in common? What does every difficult environment teach me about myself? Often, the common thread isn't them, it's you. Not in a way that blames you, but in a way that reveals what you're carrying. Toxic patterns cling to unhealed wounds. If you feel unworthy, you'll attract those who treat you that way. If you fear abandonment, you'll unconsciously bond with people who leave. The next step is boundaries. Loops thrive in the absence of limits. Every time you allow disrespect, silence your needs, or tolerate unhealthy energy, the loop tightens. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about declaring to the universe, I will no longer repeat this pattern. For example, walking away from a friendship that constantly drains you may feel uncomfortable, but it signals to life that you're ready for healthier connections. Practical change also means shifting environments. If your loop is tied to places that drain your spirit, choose differently. This doesn't always mean quitting your job or leaving your hometown overnight, but it does mean creating spaces where your energy can grow, finding mentors who uplift you, joining communities that align with your values, or even dedicating time to environments where peace outweighs chaos. Breaking toxic patterns is not about hating the people or places involved. It's about recognizing that they served as mirrors, showing you what needed healing. Once you see the reflection clearly, you no longer need to stay stuck in the loop. You can thank the lesson, step out, and choose relationships and environments that reflect your healed self, not your wounded one. That's when life stops recycling pain and starts rewarding your growth. It's easy to see life loops as cruel, but in truth, they carry a hidden kindness. The loop is not just a prison, it's also a shield. It protects knowledge, insights, and levels of awareness that could overwhelm or even harm you if revealed too soon. Just like a locked vault that only opens when you've earned the key, certain truths about your destiny remain concealed until you're strong enough to handle them. Think about it this way: a child isn't handed the keys to a car before they're ready to drive. In the same way, the universe doesn't hand you certain truths or powers until your inner self has matured enough to use them wisely. If you tried to access them prematurely, you might misuse them, misunderstand them, or collapse under their weight. The loop, frustrating as it feels, acts as a guardian of that hidden knowledge, keeping you in training until you're prepared. For example, someone may dream of leadership, but repeatedly finds themselves stuck in situations where no one listens to them. The loop isn't denying their destiny, it's preparing them. Those experiences of being ignored are meant to teach patience, empathy, and resilience. Without those qualities, the knowledge of true leadership would be wasted, or worse, abused. Only when the lesson has been integrated does the loop release its grip, revealing the next layer of wisdom. Another way the loop protects knowledge is by testing consistency. Many people crave transformation when life is uncomfortable, but abandon the process as soon as things ease up. The loop ensures you don't just seek wisdom in moments of crisis, but actually embody it. If you fall back into old habits, the loop repeats, not as punishment, but as protection, safeguarding the knowledge until you prove you're ready to live it daily. Spiritual traditions across cultures echo this principle. Ancient mystery schools only revealed higher teachings to initiates who had proven discipline through repeated trials. In many religions, sacred texts speak in parables, hiding deeper truths from those not ready to grasp them. Why? Because wisdom without readiness can create destruction. The loop is modern life's version of that initiation. It ensures you don't gain access to the forbidden secret until you can handle its consequences. The most important shift happens when you stop seeing the loop as an enemy and start seeing it as a guardian. Instead of asking, "Why is life holding me back?" you begin asking, "What is life preparing me for?" That small shift transforms frustration into gratitude. You realize the cycle wasn't wasting your time. It was saving you from premature exposure to truths that required a stronger version of you. And when the moment comes, when the loop finally releases you, that hidden knowledge becomes not just information, but power. Power you are now ready to carry with wisdom, strength, and purpose. Every loop has a breaking point, a moment when the old pattern starts to crack and something new begins to seep through. It doesn't happen randomly. It arrives when your awareness, choices, and inner strength reach a level where the cycle can no longer hold you the way it once did. But this moment is easy to miss if you don't know what to look for. Often, the fracture begins with discomfort. What once felt normal starts to feel unbearable. The job you tolerated for years suddenly becomes intolerable. The relationship you excused for so long begins to suffocate you. That rising dissatisfaction isn't failure. It's the sign that your spirit has outgrown the loop. The very walls of the pattern begin to press in, forcing you to confront the truth you've avoided. Another sign of a fracture is clarity that arrives out of nowhere. You might wake up one morning and realize, "I can't keep doing this." It's not just a thought, it's a knowing, a deep inner certainty that you are done repeating the same story. This kind of clarity doesn't beg for permission, it simply shifts you into action. You stop explaining, stop justifying, and start moving differently. That's the loop cracking open. Sometimes the fracture shows up in your emotional triggers. The very things that used to send you spiraling suddenly lose their power. The insult that once cut deep now makes you shrug. The temptation you always fell for no longer attracts you. This subtle shift is profound. It means you're responding from awareness instead of unconscious programming. Every time you respond differently, the loop weakens. Life also sends external signs during this transition. Synchronicities appear more often. You might keep seeing numbers, hearing repeated phrases, or meeting people who confirm what you already feel inside. These are not coincidences, they are markers of the loop dissolving. The universe is aligning circumstances to support your exit. But perhaps the clearest indicator is the chaos before the breakthrough. Just like a storm grows strongest before it clears, loops often intensify before they collapse. You may face one final test, the hardest betrayal, the biggest financial hit, the deepest heartbreak. This isn't the loop punishing you, it's the final exam. Pass it with awareness, and the cycle can no longer hold you. Fail it, and the loop resets. Recognizing this moment is powerful. It keeps you from mistaking discomfort for failure or chaos for collapse. Instead, you understand, this is the fracture point, the doorway to freedom. If you hold steady, if you trust yourself and choose differently, the old pattern shatters, and what was hidden behind it finally begins to reveal itself. Every loop you endure has a hidden treasure on the other side, a piece of wisdom or power that cannot be accessed until you've lived through the cycle and proven ready to hold it. This is why the knowledge feels forbidden while you're still inside the loop. It's not that the universe is cruelly hiding it from you, it's that you couldn't fully grasp its meaning without first enduring the lessons that make you capable of carrying it. Think of it like unlocking a secret room in a game. The door only opens once you've completed all the earlier challenges, because inside are tools or powers that would have been wasted or even dangerous if given too soon. In life, those tools are deeper levels of self-awareness, clarity about your purpose, or even spiritual gifts you didn't know you had. The moment the loop ends, the door swings open. For example, someone stuck in repeated cycles of abandonment may finally break free by learning self-worth and setting boundaries. On the other side of that loop, they discover a wisdom that goes beyond personal healing. They can now guide others through loneliness, inspire strength, or even lead with compassion in ways that would have been impossible without their lived experience. The forbidden wisdom is not just insight, it is the transformation of pain into power. This principle shows up in many spiritual traditions. In mythology, heroes often face endless trials before receiving sacred knowledge or gifts from the gods. In ancient mystery schools, initiates were tested repeatedly before they were entrusted with deeper truths. The pattern is universal. Wisdom is not handed out, it is earned. Your loops are the modern initiation. One of the most profound secrets revealed at the end of a loop is that you were never trapped at all. The loop wasn't a prison, it was training. Once you break through, you see how every painful repeat was sculpting you, sharpening your perception, and preparing you for the life you now get to live. That awareness alone changes everything. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances, but as a graduate of them. Another piece of forbidden wisdom is realizing that your reality bends when your awareness expands. Inside the loop, life feels fixed, repetitive, and small. Outside of it, you begin to notice how much choice you actually have. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. People respond differently to you. The same world now reflects a different reality, simply because your inner frequency has shifted. This is why loops exist, not to block you but to prepare you. And when you finally step out of one, the forbidden wisdom you gain isn't abstract knowledge. It's living truth, etched into your soul, empowering you to navigate life with a depth, clarity, and strength you never had before. That wisdom is yours forever, and it cannot be taken away. When people find themselves stuck in repeating cycles, the first instinct is to fight. We push against the circumstances, blame others, or try to force outcomes to bend in our favor. It feels natural, after all, who wouldn't want to escape discomfort? But here's the paradox. The more you resist the loop, the tighter it holds you. Resistance is like quicksand. The harder you thrash, the deeper you sink. Why does this happen? Because resistance keeps you focused on the very thing you want to escape. Imagine trying not to think of a pink elephant. The more you resist the thought, the stronger it dominates your mind. Life works in the same way. If you resist betrayal by obsessing over it, you invite more of it. If you resist financial struggle by constantly fearing it, you unconsciously repeat decisions that keep you in lack. Resistance feeds the loop with your energy, keeping it alive. Think about heartbreak. Many people, after being hurt, swear, "I will never let this happen again." But that vow is rooted in fear and resistance. Instead of healing the wound, they build walls, attract the same kind of partner, or sabotage new love. The loop doesn't dissolve because the resistance itself becomes part of the cycle. On the other hand, surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means shifting from fighting the lesson to learning it. When you stop resisting and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" the energy changes. Suddenly, the loop is no longer an enemy, but a messenger. You open the door to insight instead of slamming it shut in frustration. This is why acceptance is so powerful. Acceptance doesn't mean approving of pain or tolerating mistreatment. It means acknowledging reality as it is, so you can move through it with clarity. It's like standing in a river. Resistance makes you thrash against the current, while acceptance allows you to float and let the water carry you forward. The current doesn't change, but your experience of it does. Here's another way to see it. Resistance is ego-driven. It wants control, certainty, and shortcuts. The soul, however, knows that growth is messy and non-linear. Every time you surrender the ego's demand for control, you give your higher self space to guide you. That shift is often what breaks the loop. So the next time you feel trapped in a repeating cycle, notice where you're resisting. Are you clinging to denial, blaming others, or refusing to face a truth? Instead of pouring energy into resistance, pause, breathe, ask, if I stopped fighting this, what lesson would I finally see? That small shift may be all it takes to dissolve the loop. Freedom rarely comes from force. It comes from surrendering to the lesson, embracing the teaching, and allowing yourself to grow beyond it. When you stop resisting, the loop no longer has a reason to stay, and it finally lets you go. When you've been stuck in a cycle for years, it can feel like nothing will ever change. But just before a breakthrough, life starts dropping clues, signals that you're standing at the threshold of transformation. These signs may look chaotic or confusing, but when you learn to recognize them, you'll know that the loop is on its last breath. One of the first signs is restlessness. What once felt acceptable suddenly becomes intolerable. The job you once endured now drains you to the core. The relationship you once excused now feels suffocating. That inner discomfort isn't failure, it's your spirit signaling that you've outgrown the loop. It's the same way a bird grows restless in its cage just before it learns to fly. Another sign is the increase in synchronicities. You start seeing repeating numbers, overhearing conversations that echo your inner thoughts, or bumping into people who bring up exactly what you need to hear. These coincidences are not random, they are markers guiding you toward the exit. The universe is aligning events to confirm that you're ready for something new. Breakthroughs are also preceded by endings. People may suddenly walk out of your life. Long-term friendships may collapse overnight. Opportunities you relied on may vanish. It feels like loss, but it's actually space being cleared for the new. Think of it like pruning a tree. Branches fall away so healthier growth can emerge. The collapse is not punishment, it's preparation. Dreams can also become intense during this stage. You may dream of doors, thresholds, or dramatic shifts. Some people even report vivid nightmares just before breakthroughs, as if their subconscious is purging old fears. These dreams are your mind and spirit aligning, clearing space for the next level. Physical symptoms can show up too. Fatigue, headaches, or sudden bursts of energy often accompany transformation. Your body feels the shift before your mind does. Instead of panicking, recognize these sensations as signals of recalibration. You're being rewired for a new reality. And perhaps the most powerful sign, an unshakable knowing. Even if everything looks uncertain on the outside, deep within you feel something is about to change. That inner voice no longer whispers, it insists. You can't explain it logically, but you trust it. This is the soul's way of saying, you're closer than you think. When you notice these signs, don't retreat into fear. Recognize them for what they are, evidence that the loop is crumbling and you are stepping into freedom. The discomfort, the synchronicities, the endings, the inner knowing, all of them are invitations to keep moving forward. The breakthrough isn't coming someday. It's already on its way. Breaking free from a loop is only half the journey. The real transformation begins when you stop living in repetition and start living in creation. Repetition means your life is on autopilot. You react to circumstances based on old programming. Creation means you step into the driver's seat, intentionally shaping your reality with awareness, choice, and vision. The difference is subtle but powerful. In repetition, you say things like, "This always happens to me." In creation, you say, "This time I choose differently." That small shift in language reflects a massive shift in consciousness. Instead of waiting for life to recycle lessons, you begin to design experiences that align with who you truly are. One of the first steps to creation is changing your inner dialogue. The words you speak to yourself set the tone for your reality. If you constantly repeat, "I'm unlucky in love," or "I'll never get ahead," you're unconsciously reinforcing the loop. But when you replace those scripts with, "I am worthy of love," or "opportunities flow toward me," you plant seeds for new experiences. Creation begins in the mind before it manifests in the world. Another way to shift from repetition to creation is through intentional practices. Visualization is powerful because it allows you to pre-live the reality you want. Journaling helps you rewrite the old narrative into a new one. Meditation clears the noise so your intuition can guide you. These aren't just feel-good practices, they're tools for training your subconscious to align with creation instead of repetition. Energy also plays a role. Loops keep you stuck in heavy, stagnant energy. Creation flows from light, expansive energy. Pay attention to what drains you versus what excites you. Choosing joy, curiosity, and gratitude may sound simple, but it's revolutionary. Those states raise your frequency, pulling you out of old loops and into fresh opportunities. Here's a practical example. Someone who always repeated cycles of financial struggle may shift into creation by first changing their language. "I am capable of managing wealth," then visualizing abundance daily, journaling about opportunities, and making conscious choices that align with responsibility instead of fear. The loop dissolves because they're no longer waiting for change, they're creating it. The most empowering part of creation is realizing that your life is not fixed, it's fluid. Loops make you believe you're trapped. Creation reminds you that you're limitless. Every choice, thought, and action is a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. You don't need to wait for permission. The moment you decide to step into creation, you begin to design a reality that reflects your highest self instead of your oldest wounds. The moment you break a loop, the world doesn't just look different, it is different. Your perception, your opportunities, even the people you attract begin to change. It's almost as if you've stepped into a new dimension, even though you're standing in the same place. That's the power of escaping repetition. Your inner shift reshapes your outer reality. One of the first changes you'll notice is clarity. Where you once felt foggy and confused, life suddenly feels sharper. You see through illusions that used to trap you. The toxic friend who once manipulated you now appears transparent. The job you once thought you needed reveals itself as a cage. This clarity isn't bitter, it's liberating. You stop wasting energy on what drains you and begin directing it toward what expands you. Opportunities also begin to flow more easily. The same world that once felt like closed doors now begins to open. New people arrive, unexpected invitations appear, synchronicities multiply. This isn't magic, it's alignment. When you leave behind the frequency of the loop, you stop attracting the same recycled struggles and start magnetizing experiences that match your new awareness. Relationships shift too. People who belong in your new reality naturally stay, while those tied to your old patterns quietly fade away. It can feel like loss at first, but you'll notice something important. The relationships that remain are healthier, more authentic, and more aligned with who you are becoming. The old connections weren't bad, they were simply part of the loop. Now that you're free, your soul calls in those who reflect your growth. Your inner state transforms as well. Anxiety, which once seemed constant, begins to loosen its grip. You feel lighter, calmer, and more in control, not because life suddenly became easy, but because you've learned how to navigate it with awareness. The same challenges may appear, but you respond differently. That change in response reshapes the outcome every time. Another fascinating shift is how reality itself seems to bend. You'll notice that when you set intentions, they manifest faster. When you make choices, their impact ripples wider. You begin to understand that you were never powerless. The loop only made it feel that way. Now, free from repetition, you realize that you are co-creating reality moment by moment. Escaping the loop doesn't mean life becomes perfect. Challenges still come, but they no longer repeat in the same way. Instead, each challenge feels like an opportunity to grow higher, not circle back. You move in an upward spiral instead of a closed circle. That's the essence of transformation, progress that doesn't erase the past, but transcends it. Once you experience this shift, you can never see reality the same way again. The world opens, the path widens, and you finally understand that freedom isn't about escaping life. It's about learning to live it fully without being chained to yesterday's patterns. Escaping a loop is liberating, but with that liberation comes a new kind of weight, responsibility. When you finally see clearly, you can't unsee. The excuses that worked before no longer hold. You can't pretend you don't know better, and you can't slip comfortably back into the old patterns without feeling the cost immediately. Freedom isn't the end of responsibility, it's the beginning of it. The first responsibility is self-accountability. Once you've broken the loop, you know that you are not powerless, that your choices matter, and that your awareness shapes outcomes. This knowledge means you can no longer play the victim role. If you fall back into toxic relationships, you'll know it's not bad luck, it's a choice. If you ignore your intuition, you'll feel the consequences faster. Awareness sharpens the feedback loop. Life holds you to a higher standard, not as punishment, but because you now have the capacity to live from a higher place. The second responsibility is integrity. With new vision, you realize that your actions ripple out into the lives of others. You can no longer justify hurting people, betraying yourself, or staying silent in the face of what's wrong. Your growth demands alignment. If your words and actions don't match your awareness, the dissonance will be unbearable. Integrity becomes non-negotiable because you've tasted the cost of living out of sync. Then comes the responsibility of service. When you've learned how to break free, you carry a blueprint that others are still searching for. You don't need to save everyone, but your very existence becomes a guidepost. The way you live, the choices you make, and the energy you carry all show others that freedom is possible. Sometimes you'll inspire people silently, simply by walking your truth. Other times, you'll actively help by sharing your lessons, offering support, or being the mirror that wakes someone else up. But perhaps the greatest responsibility is to protect your new vision. Old loops may try to pull you back, not through fate, but through old habits, old crowds, and old ways of thinking. It's easy to get tempted into familiar chaos because it feels safe. Your responsibility is to guard your awareness, to say no when necessary, and to continually choose alignment over comfort. This doesn't mean living in fear of falling back. It means consciously reinforcing the freedom you've gained. Responsibility, then, isn't a burden. It's a privilege. It means you've graduated from survival into conscious living. It means life now trusts you with greater choices, greater impact, and greater opportunities. The responsibility that comes with vision isn't about weight, it's about power. And when you embrace it, you stop fearing the loops ever returning because you know you'll never walk blindly into them again. Breaking free from a loop doesn't just release you from the past, it places you on an entirely new path, one that feels more authentic, expansive, and aligned with your true purpose. This is what it means to step into your true timeline. No longer are you recycling the same storylines or repeating the same old lessons. You begin living a reality that feels uniquely yours, not borrowed from pain, fear, or programming. In this timeline, your choices expand. Where once you felt stuck between two bad options, you now see endless possibilities. The cage of repetition taught you survival, but freedom invites you into creation. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid pain?" you start asking, "What do I want to build? Who do I want to become?" This shift from fear to vision is the heartbeat of your true timeline. Living beyond the loop also means embracing uncertainty. Old patterns gave you predictability. Even if it was painful, it was familiar. The true timeline doesn't come with guarantees, but this uncertainty isn't something to fear. It's proof that you're no longer trapped. Every unknown moment is raw potential, waiting for you to shape it. What once felt like chaos now feels like possibility. Another hallmark of the true timeline is alignment. You begin making choices that match your values and higher self, rather than your wounds. Relationships feel lighter because they're chosen out of love, not desperation. Work becomes meaningful because it reflects your gifts, not your fears. Even your daily routines carry more intention. The loop trained you through repetition. The new timeline empowers you through alignment. It's also important to note that stepping into your true timeline doesn't mean life becomes perfect. Challenges still arise, but they no longer drag you in circles. Instead, each challenge becomes a stepping stone, lifting you higher. You move in spirals now, not loops. Each turn brings new perspective and deeper wisdom. Most of all, living beyond the loop feels like authenticity. You're no longer acting from who you were told to be, you're living from who you are. You stop performing for approval, stop chasing what doesn't resonate, and start honoring the voice within. This is freedom in its purest form, living as yourself, unapologetically and fully. And as you walk this path, something extraordinary happens. You realize your journey was never just about you. Every loop you broke, every lesson you integrated, every piece of wisdom you carried forward, it all becomes part of a greater story. You become a guidepost, a living reminder that no one has to stay trapped forever. This is the reward of breaking the loop, not just survival, but sovereignty, not just freedom from the past, but power to create the future. Your true timeline is waiting, unwritten, limitless, and entirely yours. Step into it boldly, because the moment you do, your reality will never be the same again.